Marcus Reynolds sat in seat 32B, his tall frame uncomfortably wedged into the economy class seat. As the CEO of Horizon Technologies, one of Silicon Valley's fastest-growing startups, Marcus could easily afford first class. But today's last-minute booking on Transglobal Airways had left him with limited options. The San Francisco to New York route was packed with business travelers, and he'd been lucky to secure any seat at all. The cabin was stuffy, filled with the mingled scents of perfume, cleaning products, and the faint mustiness that seemed to permeate all commercial aircraft. Marcus adjusted his crisp white shirt and checked his watch-a modest Timex despite his considerable wealth. He believed in practical luxury, not ostentatious displays. His father, a factory foreman who had worked 60-hour weeks to put Marcus through college, had instilled in him a deep respect for value over flash. Outside the small oval window, clouds drifted by like cotton mountains. Marcus had been reviewing quarterly projections on his laptop, but the cramped conditions made meaningful work nearly impossible. He closed the device and slipped it into the seat pocket, deciding to use the 5-hour flight for reflection instead. Horizon Technologies had just crossed the billion-dollar valuation threshold, and the board was pushing for aggressive expansion. The airline industry had been on his radar as a potential vertical their customer experience. Metrics were consistently poor across all carriers, presenting an opportunity for Horizon's AI-driven solutions. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was now experiencing those poor metrics firsthand. "Excuse me," Marcus called politely to Jasmine Williams, the flight attendant passing by his row. Her Transglobal Airways uniform was impeccably pressed, and her natural hair was styled in neat braids beneath her regulation cap. "I pre-ordered a vegetarian meal for this flight. Could you confirm it's been loaded?" Jasmine barely glanced at him. "We'll be serving meals shortly, sir." "I understand," Marcus replied with a patient smile. "But I have dietary restrictions and specifically ordered ahead. Could you please check?" Jasmine's expression hardened slightly. "As I said, we'll be serving meals shortly. You'll get what's available." Marcus noticed the slight edge in her tone but maintained his composure. He'd built his tech empire on emotional intelligence and strategic thinking. Throughout his career, he'd faced skepticism and resistance first as a young entrepreneur in a field dominated by established players, then as a CEO advocating for ethical AI development. When most were focused solely on speed to market, he'd learned that confrontation rarely yielded positive outcomes. "I appreciate you're busy, but my confirmation email shows the special meal request was accepted. Could you please verify?" He held up his phone, displaying the email. Jasmine's eyes flicked to it dismissively. "Everyone thinks they're special," she muttered, just loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "You'll eat what everyone else gets." The woman in seat 32A, a young South Asian professional named Priya Sharma, looked up from her book with raised eyebrows. The tension was palpable. Priya had been engrossed in a medical journal. Marcus had noticed the complex diagrams of cardiac procedures when he'd taken his seat, but now her full attention was on the interaction unfolding beside her. Marcus took a deep breath. His mind flashed to the customer experience workshops he'd conducted for Fortune 500 companies, where he often role-played difficult scenarios. When emotions rise, he would tell executives information processing declines. He needed to stay calm and clear. "I'd like to speak with your supervisor, please." "I am the supervisor for this cabin section," Jasmine replied, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction. "And we don't have any special meals for economy passengers who think they're too good for regular food." Several passengers were now watching the interaction. Marcus noticed a teenager surreptitiously recording with their phone. The digital age had turned every public interaction into potential viral content, something he'd lectured about at industry conferences. Now he was living it. "I see," Marcus said quietly. He pulled out his business card, minimalist design, just his name and CEO, Horizon Technologies, and handed it to her. "I'd like your full name for my records, please." Jasmine's expression flickered with momentary uncertainty before hardening again. She pointedly ignored the card. "My name badge is right here, sir. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other passengers to attend to." As she walked away, Priya leaned over. "That was completely unprofessional. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, thank you," Marcus replied, his voice steady, "just disappointed." "I'm a cardiologist," Priya offered. "If your dietary restrictions are medical, I'd be happy to speak with her." Marcus smiled gratefully. "That's very kind, but this is about more than my meal now." When the meal service began 30 minutes later, Jasmine deliberately skipped Marcus's row. When he politely reminded her, she dropped a standard chicken meal on his tray with a curt, "This is all we have." "I can't eat this," Marcus explained calmly. "I'm vegetarian for medical reasons." "Then I guess you're not eating," she replied, moving on. Priya, outraged on his behalf, offered him her fruit cup and bread roll. "This is ridiculous," she whispered. "You should report her." "I intend to," Marcus said quietly, accepting the food with thanks, "but not in the way she expects." For the remainder of the 5-hour flight, Marcus documented every interaction. He noted times, collected statements from neighboring passengers, and even received video clips from those who had recorded the incidents. He worked quietly on his laptop, occasionally making calls when permitted. The teenager who had been recording a high school student named Tyler slipped Marcus a note with his contact information. "My mom's a civil rights attorney," he whispered. "She says what happened to you was textbook discrimination." Marcus thanked him but didn't elaborate on his plans. He wasn't interested in a public spectacle or a quick settlement. His vision extended far beyond this single incident. What Jasmine Williams didn't know was that Marcus Reynolds wasn't just any CEO. His company, Horizon Technologies, specialized in customer experience analytics and had recently been exploring expansion into the airline industry. Transglobal Airways was, in fact, one of the companies he had been considering approaching for a potential partnership. As the plane began its descent, Marcus finalized an email on his laptop. With a single click, he sent it to Transglobal's board of directors subboard he had met with just last month to discuss potential technology integration. The email was measured and factual, detailing the incident without emotional language, but including links to the video evidence and statements from witnesses. The final paragraph read, "This experience has given me valuable insight into Transglobal's service culture. I believe there is significant opportunity for improvement, and I would welcome a conversation about how Horizon Technologies might assist in that transformation. I'll be in New York until Friday and am available to meet at your convenience." As passengers disembarked, Jasmine stood at the exit, offering perfunctory thanks to each person. When Marcus approached, she stiffened visibly. "I hope the rest of your day improves," Marcus said sincerely, meeting her eyes. "Everyone deserves dignity, passengers and employees alike." For a brief moment, something like confusion crossed Jasmine's face. She had clearly expected anger or a threat. His compassion seemed to unsettle her more than hostility would have. Marcus stepped off the plane into the bustling terminal of JFK Airport, already planning his next move. By the time he reached his hotel, 3 members of Transglobal's board had responded to his email, requesting an urgent meeting. The game was about to change just for Marcus Reynolds or Transglobal Airways, but for an entire industry that had forgotten the humanity at the heart of its business. 3 days later, Marcus sat in the office of Eleanor Chen, TransGlobal's CEO. The wall of windows behind her desk offered a panoramic view of the city skyline, the morning sun casting long shadows across the polished conference table. Eleanor's office occupied the entire northeast corner of TransGlobal's Manhattan headquarters, a space designed to impress and intimidate. Eleanor Chen had a reputation as a formidable executive. The daughter of Chinese immigrants, she had worked her way up from financial analyst to become the first female CEO in the company's history. Business journals regularly featured her in Most Powerful Women in Business lists, and her turnaround of TransGlobal's cargo division was taught in MBA programs. She was known for her analytical mind and uncompromising standards. Today, however, she seemed slightly off balance. The situation with Marcus was unprecedented, a high-profile CEO experiencing discrimination on her airline, with video evidence circulating among board members. "Mr. Reynolds," Eleanor began, her expression grave, "I want to personally apologize for your experience on our flight. It was unacceptable by any standard." Marcus nodded. "I appreciate that, Miss Chen, but I'm not here for an apology." "I understand you filed a discrimination lawsuit," she continued, glancing at the folder on her desk. The legal department had prepared a comprehensive brief, including a proposed settlement figure that the board had pre-approved. "Yes," Marcus confirmed, "but that's not why I requested this meeting either." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Then why are we here?" Marcus opened his laptop and turned it toward her. On the screen was a comprehensive presentation titled TransGlobal Airways, Customer Experience Transformation Initiative. "I'm here to offer a solution," he said. "My company has developed AI-driven customer service protocols that have transformed retail and hospitality industries. The airline industry is next." Eleanor leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. "You're pitching me business after filing a lawsuit against us?" "The lawsuit isn't personal," Marcus explained. "It's a necessary catalyst for change. Your airline has a systemic problem, one that my experience highlighted but certainly didn't create." He advanced to the next slide, showing damning statistics about TransGlobal's customer satisfaction ratings compared to competitors. The data was meticulously sourced from industry reports, social media sentiment analysis, and customer reviews. "Your company is losing $142 million annually due to poor customer retention," Marcus continued. "My research shows that 67% of those losses stem from frontline service failures that could be prevented with proper training and accountability systems." Eleanor's expression shifted from defensive to contemplative. "And you think your technology can fix this?" "I know it can," Marcus replied confidently, "but technology alone isn't enough. You need cultural transformation." For the next hour, Marcus outlined his vision, a complete overhaul of TransGlobal's service culture, powered by Horizon's technology but driven by human-centered leadership principles. He explained how their AI could identify patterns in customer interactions, predict potential service breakdowns before they occurred, and provide real-time coaching to frontline staff. The key insight, Marcus emphasized, is that customer experience and employee experience are two sides of the same coin. Your flight attendants are overworked, undersupported, and incentivized to prioritize efficiency over empathy. Change that, and you change everything. Eleanor studied him with newfound respect. "You've done your homework." "I've been researching TransGlobal for months," Marcus admitted. "Your airline was on our partnership shortlist before this incident. Now, I'm even more convinced we can create something revolutionary together." As part of the settlement for my lawsuit, Marcus concluded, I'm proposing a joint venture. Horizon Technologies will provide the systems and training at cost in exchange for equity and a board seat at TransGlobal. Eleanor sat back, studying him. This is unconventional. So is denying a passenger their pre-ordered meal based on prejudice, Marcus countered. But I'm offering a path forward that benefits everyone: your shareholders, your employees, and most importantly, your customers. Eleanor was silent for a long moment, weighing the proposal. Marcus could almost see the calculations running behind her eyes, the financial implications, the board politics, the PR considerations. The flight attendant, she said finally. Jasmine Williams. She's been with us 15 years, no prior complaints. What happens to her in your scenario? It was the question Marcus had been waiting for, the one that would reveal Eleanor's true priorities. She becomes central to the transformation, he replied without hesitation. The employees who have experienced the broken system firsthand are the ones best positioned to fix it. With proper support and training, Ms. Williams could become your most powerful advocate for change. Eleanor's expression softened almost imperceptibly. You're not what I expected, Mr. Reynolds. I get that a lot, Marcus smiled. Shall we discuss details? By the time Marcus left TransGlobal headquarters 3 hours later, they had the framework of an agreement. Eleanor would present the proposal to her board the following day, with Marcus joining virtually to address questions. The lawsuit would be settled quietly, with the funds directed toward establishing a customer experience training center for airline staff. As Marcus's car navigated through Manhattan traffic, he received a text from Eleanor. Board meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. Legal is drafting the partnership agreement now. This could be the beginning of something important. Marcus smiled to himself. It already is, he texted back. What had begun as a denied meal was about to nourish an entire industry's transformation. 6 months later, Marcus stood on a stage at TransGlobal's headquarters, addressing 500 flight attendants, pilots, and ground staff. Behind him, a large screen displayed the airline's new motto, "Every seat matters." The auditorium hummed with an energy that had been absent from TransGlobal for years. The joint venture between Horizon Technologies and TransGlobal Airways, officially named Horizon Global Experience, had moved with remarkable speed to implement changes throughout the organization. Today marks the beginning of TransGlobal's renaissance. Marcus announced, Our Every Passenger initiative has already improved customer satisfaction by 34% in just 3 months. The audience applauded enthusiastically. These weren't empty statistics to them. They had lived the transformation daily, experiencing how the new systems and training had empowered them to provide better service with less stress. In the front row, Eleanor Chen nodded approvingly. Beside her sat Jasmine Williams, now serving in a newly created role as Customer Experience Advocate, a position Marcus had specifically requested for her after their reconciliation. The transformation hadn't been easy. When Marcus had first approached Jasmine after the lawsuit settlement, she had been defensive and fearful for her job. But Marcus had surprised her. I don't want you fired, he had told her during their first meeting. I want you empowered to be part of the solution. They had met in a small conference room at JFK Airport, neutral territory for both of them. Jasmine had arrived prepared for confrontation, clutching a folder of performance reviews and commendation letters, evidence of her value to the airline. You don't need to defend yourself, Marcus had said gently. I'm not here to judge you for one bad day. Through tears, Jasmine had explained her own struggles, the daily microaggressions she faced as a black woman in a service role, the pressure from management to prioritize first-class passengers, and the burnout from understaffed flights. Last month, I worked 18 consecutive days because we were short-staffed. She had confessed. The day I met you was day 16. My mother had been hospitalized the night before, and management denied my emergency leave request. Marcus had listened intently, taking notes and asking thoughtful questions. By the end of their 3-hour conversation, they had identified dozens of systemic issues that contributed to poor service outcomes, none of which were addressed in TransGlobal's existing training or policies. Your experience matters too, Marcus had assured her. That's why this isn't just about customer service, it's about creating a workplace where everyone feels valued. Now, as Marcus concluded his presentation, he invited Jasmine to join him on stage. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present: the passenger who had been discriminated against standing shoulder to shoulder with the employee who had discriminated against him. TransGlobal's journey shows us that a single negative interaction can either destroy a relationship or become the foundation for something extraordinary, Marcus said. The choice is always ours. Jasmine stepped to the microphone, visibly nervous but determined. 6 months ago, I was at my breaking point, she began. I took my frustration out on a passenger who didn't deserve it. I expected to be fired. Instead, I was asked to help fix the system that had failed both of us. She described the changes implemented since then: realistic staffing models that prevented burnout, mental health resources for employees, cultural sensitivity training, and a revolutionary dignity protocol that empowered staff to make real-time decisions in passengers' best interests without fear of reprimand. For the first time in my 15 years here, Jasmine concluded, I'm proud to wear this uniform. The audience rose in a standing ovation as Marcus and Jasmine unveiled the new TransGlobal Airways Lagoa Horizon with infinite possibilities, inspired by the partnership that had transformed an airline and challenged an industry. In the back of the room, Priya Sharma, now TransGlobal's Chief Diversity Officer, another of Marcus's recommendations, smiled proudly. After that fateful flight, Marcus had stayed in touch with Priya, impressed by her immediate empathy and clear thinking during the incident. When the opportunity arose to bring her expertise to TransGlobal, he hadn't hesitated to reach out. The hashtag #EveryPassenger was trending nationwide, and airlines across the industry were scrambling to implement similar initiatives. What had begun as discrimination in Seat 32B had evolved into a movement that transcended one flight, one airline, or even one industry. It had become a case study in how principled leadership could transform conflict into collaboration, prejudice into progress, and a single meal denial into a feast of positive change. As Marcus left the stage, his phone buzzed with a notification. TransGlobal's stock had just hit an all-time high. Not bad for economy class, he murmured to himself with a smile. 1 year after the transformation began, TransGlobal Airways hosted its annual shareholder meeting in a dramatically different atmosphere than the previous year. The company's stock had risen 78% since the implementation of the Every Passenger initiative, and customer loyalty metrics showed the highest retention rate in the airline's 35-year history. The grand ballroom of the New York Hilton was filled to capacity with investors, analysts, and media representatives. The buzz of anticipation was palpable. TransGlobal's turnaround had become the business story of the year. Marcus sat in the front row as Eleanor Chen delivered her keynote address. The large screens behind her displayed compelling before and after statistics. Complaint rates down 62%, employee retention up 47%. Net Promoter Score increased from 24 to 72. When we began this journey, Eleanor said, gesturing to the data, TransGlobal was losing market share at an alarming rate. Today, we're the industry leader in customer satisfaction and employee retention. She clicked to the next slide, which showed a simple photograph, a vegetarian meal being served to a passenger in economy class. The audience chuckled, familiar with the story that had launched the transformation. Sometimes, Eleanor continued, the most profound changes begin with the simplest failures. We failed to serve a meal. But in addressing that failure, we discovered how to better serve our entire community, passengers and employees alike. The shareholders applauded enthusiastically. Marcus caught Jasmine's eye across the room, and they exchanged subtle nods. Her journey had been particularly remarkable, from nearly being terminated to becoming the face of the company's transformation. She now led a team of 30 customer experience advocates, all promoted from frontline positions, who served as the voice of both employees and customers in all major company decisions. After the formal presentations, Marcus mingled with board members and investors at the reception. He was approached by Raj Patel, the chairman of rival airline Skyroute International. "Impressive turnaround, Reynolds," Raj said, extending his hand. "I've been in this industry 30 years and never seen anything like it." "Thank you," Marcus replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Though the credit belongs to the TransGlobal team, I just provided the framework." Raj chuckled. "Always modest. But we both know it took more than a framework to convert a discrimination lawsuit into a billion-dollar valuation increase." He lowered his voice. "Skyroute could use someone with your vision. Our board has authorized me to discuss a potential acquisition of Horizon Technologies." Marcus smiled diplomatically. "I appreciate the interest, Raj, but Horizon isn't for sale. Besides, our exclusive partnership with TransGlobal has another 4 years. "Partnerships can be bought out," Raj persisted. "Name your price." Before Marcus could respond, Jasmine approached with a small group of flight attendants. "Mr. Reynolds," she said warmly, "these are the first graduates of our Customer Experience Leadership Program. They wanted to meet you." Marcus excused himself from Raj and spent the next 20 minutes engaging with the enthusiastic graduates. Each had a story about how the program had transformed not just their professional approach, but their personal outlook. "Before the training, I saw difficult passengers as the enemy," admitted Carlos, a veteran flight attendant. "Now I see them as opportunities to demonstrate our values." "The empathy simulation was life-changing," added Sophia, a gate agent. "Experiencing the journey through different passengers' perspectives, elderly, disabled, parents with young children, completely changed how I approach my job." Marcus listened attentively, asking questions and taking mental notes. The program they described had evolved significantly from his original design, incorporating insights and innovations from the frontline staff themselves. This was exactly what he had hoped for, a living system that could grow and adapt beyond its creator's initial vision. Later that evening, Marcus sat with Eleanor and Jasmine in Eleanor's office, reviewing the day's events. The formal boardroom had been replaced by comfortable seating, and Eleanor had exchanged her power suit for a more casual blazer's mall, but significant symbols of the cultural shift within the company. "Skyroute made you an offer, didn't they?" Eleanor asked, pouring sparkling water into crystal glasses. Marcus nodded. "News travels fast." "In this industry?" "At light speed," Eleanor replied with a smile. "What did you tell them?" "That I'm committed to TransGlobal," Marcus said simply. "This was never about building something to sell. It's about creating lasting change." Jasmine leaned forward. "Speaking of change, I've been thinking about our international expansion. The cultural sensitivity training needs adjustment for our Asian roots." The discussion shifted to implementation details, the 3 executives working seamlessly together despite their dramatically different backgrounds and the rocky start to their professional relationship. They had developed a shorthand over the past year, each bringing unique perspectives that strengthened their collective decision-making. As the meeting concluded, Eleanor's assistant knocked and entered with an urgent expression. Ms. Chen, there's been an incident on flight 2473 from Chicago. A passenger is claiming discrimination by one of our ground staff. The room fell silent. This was exactly the type of situation their new protocols were designed to prevent. Eleanor looked at Marcus and Jasmine. Let's handle this together. Within minutes, they had gathered in the crisis management room, where live feeds connected them to the Chicago Airport Operations Center. The situation involved a Muslim passenger who had been subjected to additional screening and missed his flight as a result. Activate the passenger advocacy protocol, Marcus instructed calmly. Jasmine, can you personally reach out to the passenger? Eleanor, I suggest we arrange immediate alternative transportation and compensation while we investigate. The team moved with practiced efficiency. What would have previously escalated into a public relations disaster and potential lawsuit was addressed with transparency, empathy, and immediate action. 3 hours later, the passenger, renowned surgeon traveling to perform a specialized procedure, was on a private transglobal charter to his destination, with Jasmine personally accompanying him to ensure his experience was positive. This is how it should work, Marcus remarked to Eleanor as they monitored the resolution. Not perfect prevention, that's impossible, but perfect response. Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. You know, when you first proposed this partnership, I thought it was just a clever way to settle your lawsuit without admitting fault. And now? Marcus asked. Now I understand it was never about the meal they denied you, she replied. It was about the dignity they denied you, and you found a way to restore dignity to an entire company. The following week, Marcus returned to Horizon Technologies' headquarters in Silicon Valley. The company had grown significantly since the transglobal partnership, expanding from 120 employees to over 300 and moving to a larger campus in Palo Alto. The new headquarters reflected Marcus's philosophy, open and collaborative, with spaces designed to foster both creativity and well-being. The central atrium featured a living wall of plants that improved air quality and reduced stress, while meeting rooms were named after transformative moments in customer experience history, including one called Seat 32B. His executive team had gathered for their quarterly strategy session. The boardroom table was surrounded by diverse faces. Marcus had been intentional about building a leadership team that represented a wide range of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. The transglobal case study has generated unprecedented interest, reported Aisha Khatri, Horizon's chief marketing officer. A former journalist with a keen understanding of narrative, Aisha had joined Horizon after covering the transglobal transformation for the Wall Street Journal. We've received partnership inquiries from 3 hotel chains, 2 retail conglomerates, and even a healthcare network. Marcus nodded, studying the data on his tablet. What's interesting is that they're all coming to us for the human element, not just the technology. 5 years ago, everyone wanted our AI and analytics. Now they want our cultural transformation methodology. Speaking of transformation, interjected David Chen, Chief Technology Officer, and no relation to Eleanor. The transglobal data has helped us refine our empathy prediction algorithms. We can now identify potential service breakdowns before they occur with 78% accuracy. David displayed a heat map showing how the system monitored various stress indicators from passenger volume to weather delays to staff fatigue levels and predicted when and where service quality might deteriorate. The key innovation, David continued, is that we're not just flagging problems, we're suggesting solutions. The system recommends specific interventions based on the nature of the potential breakdown. The team spent the afternoon refining their expansion strategy, carefully selecting partners who demonstrated genuine commitment to service transformation rather than mere image rehabilitation. Marcus was adamant that Horizon would not become a dignity washing service for companies unwilling to make fundamental changes. "We're turning down more business than we're accepting," noted Ravi Mehta, Chief Financial Officer. "That's unusual for a growth stage company." "We're playing the long game," Marcus replied. "Every successful transformation becomes a case study that attracts the right kind of partners. Every failed one would damage our brand irreparably." As the meeting concluded, Marcus received a notification on his Phonea news alert about Transglobal Airways. He opened it to find a feature story in Business Week titled "The Meal That Changed an Industry: How One CEO's Economy Class Experience Revolutionized Airline Service." The article detailed the remarkable turnaround at Transglobal and the ripple effects throughout the industry. It included interviews with passengers who described dramatically improved experiences and employees who spoke about renewed pride in their work. Marcus scrolled to a quote from Jasmine. "Mr. Reynolds could have destroyed my career. Instead, he helped me find my purpose. He showed me that true leadership isn't about power over others, it's about empowering others." The article concluded with an industry analyst's assessment. What Reynolds and Chen have created goes beyond customer service improvement. They've established a new paradigm where dignity for both customers and employees is recognized as a tangible business asset with measurable return on investment. That evening, as Marcus drove home along the coastal highway, he reflected on the journey that had begun with a denied meal. The setting sun painted the Pacific Ocean in shades of gold and crimson, a fitting backdrop for contemplation. His phone rang through the car's speaker system. "Marcus Reynolds," he answered. "Mr. Reynolds, this is Captain Sarah Jimenez from Transglobal Flight 846. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all, Captain. Is everything all right?" "More than all right," she replied. "I wanted to share something with you. We had a situation on today's flight, a passenger with severe anxiety who was struggling before takeoff. Our new protocols gave my crew the authority to delay departure by 12 minutes to ensure the passenger was comfortable." "I'm glad to hear the protocols worked," Marcus said. "That's just it," Captain Jimenez continued. "In the old Transglobal, we would have been reprimanded for delaying departure. Today, we received commendation. But here's what really matters. The passenger was a young girl traveling to meet her adoptive parents for the first time. Because we took those extra minutes, her journey began with care instead of trauma." Marcus felt a wave of emotion. "Thank you for sharing that, Captain." "No, Mr. Reynolds. Thank you for showing us that one person really can change an entire system." As Marcus pulled into his driveway, he noticed a package on his doorstep. Inside was a handcrafted wooden plaque from the Transglobal Flight Attendants Association. It bore a simple inscription: "Every meal matters because every passenger matters. Thank you for helping us remember why we fly." Marcus placed the plaque on his mantle, next to a framed copy of his original meal request confirmation email, the small detail that had sparked a movement. In seat 32B, he had been at a meal. From seat 32B, he had launched a revolution. And somewhere in the skies above America, passengers of all backgrounds were being served exactly what they had ordered, by flight attendants who understood that service with dignity wasn't just good business, it was human decency. The meal that never came had fed something far greater, a hunger for change that had always existed in the industry, waiting for someone with the courage to demand better not just for himself, but for everyone. 2 years into the transformation, Transglobal Airways had become a case study at leading business schools. Harvard Business Review published an in-depth analysis titled "The Reynolds Effect." When customer experience becomes corporate culture. The article traced how a single incident of discrimination had catalyzed industry-wide change. On a crisp autumn morning, Marcus stood before an auditorium of MBA students at Stanford Business School. The lecture hall was packed beyond capacity, with students sitting in the aisles and standing along the walls. The case study of TransGlobal's transformation had become required reading across business programs nationwide. The most powerful question in business isn't how do we increase profits, Marcus explained, pacing thoughtfully across the stage. It's how do we increase dignity. Profit follows dignity, not the other way around. He clicked to a slide showing TransGlobal's financial performance since implementing the dignity-centered approach. The correlation between improved customer experience metrics and financial outcomes was undeniable. When we focus exclusively on financial metrics, Marcus continued, we create systems that treat humans as transactions. When we focus on dignity, we create systems that recognize the humanity in every interaction and the financial results follow naturally. A student raised her hand. But Mr. Reynolds, couldn't you have achieved the same outcome by simply filing the lawsuit and moving on? Why invest so much personal time in TransGlobal's transformation? It was a question Marcus had heard before, particularly from investors who sometimes questioned his hands-on involvement with partner companies. Marcus considered the question carefully. I could have won a settlement and walked away. That would have benefited me and perhaps my attorneys. The audience chuckled. But it wouldn't have fixed the underlying problem. True leadership isn't about winning battles, it's about healing systems. He shared how the partnership with TransGlobal had actually accelerated Horizon's growth by providing a powerful case study and real-world laboratory for their methodologies. The most valuable currency in business isn't money, it's meaning. Marcus concluded, by creating meaning for TransGlobal's employees and customers, we created unprecedented value for shareholders. That's the paradox of purpose-driven business. After the lecture, Professor Gabriela Morales approached Marcus. A renowned expert in organizational behavior, Morales had been skeptical when Marcus first proposed collaborating on a case study of the TransGlobal transformation. That was exceptional, she said. I've been teaching organizational behavior for 20 years, and your case breaks all the conventional wisdom about corporate response to discrimination claims. How so? Marcus asked as they walked toward the faculty lounge. Typically, companies defend, deny, and distance themselves from incidents like yours, she explained. TransGlobal embraced the failure, elevated the very employee who discriminated against you, and rebuilt around a new ethos. It's unprecedented. Perhaps that's why it worked, Marcus suggested. Conventional responses produce conventional results. Professor Morales nodded thoughtfully. We're adding a new module to our executive education program based on your approach. We're calling it Transformative Response to Failure. Would you consider being a regular guest lecturer? Marcus agreed, recognizing another opportunity to scale the impact of what they had built at TransGlobal. Education was a powerful lever for change that could influence future business leaders before they even entered the corporate world. Later that week, Marcus received an unexpected visitor at Horizon Technologies headquarters. Jasmine Williams arrived for what she described as an important conversation. In Marcus's minimalist office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Silicon Valley, Jasmine seemed uncharacteristically nervous. She had grown into her leadership role at TransGlobal with remarkable speed, becoming a respected voice in the company and even featured in Essence magazine's Women to Watch issue. Today, however, she fidgeted with her watch strap and avoided direct eye contact. I've been offered the position of Chief Customer Officer at SkyRoute International, she announced without preamble. Marcus leaned back in his chair, genuinely surprised. Raj Patel's airline? Our competitor? Jasmine nodded. They want me to implement what we've built at Transglobal. It would mean a significant promotion and, she hesitated, a seven-figure compensation package. That's impressive, Marcus acknowledged, and well-deserved. I wanted to speak with you before making my decision. Jasmine continued. After everything we've been through, it felt wrong to consider working for a competitor without discussing it with you first. Marcus stood and walked to the window, gathering his thoughts. The Silicon Valley landscape stretched before them, a testament to how ideas could grow from garage startups to world-changing enterprises. He turned back to Jasmine with a question. 2 years ago, when we first met, what was your job title? Flight attendant, Jasmine replied. And now you're being recruited as a C-suite executive at a major airline. Marcus turned back to her with a smile. That's exactly what this was all about, Jasmine. Not just fixing one company, but elevating people who can fix many companies. So you're not upset? Quite the opposite, Marcus assured her. I'm proud. This is how change scales through people who carry it forward. They spent the next hour discussing the opportunity, with Marcus offering advice on negotiating her contract and establishing authority in her new role. As Jasmine prepared to leave, she paused at the door. You know, I've never properly apologized for how I treated you on that flight, she said quietly. Marcus shook his head. No apology necessary. Without that interaction, none of this happens. Still, Jasmine insisted, I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Apology accepted, Marcus replied simply. Now, go change another airline. After Jasmine left, Marcus called Eleanor to share the news. They had developed a close professional relationship over the past 2 years, with mutual respect that had evolved into friendship. I just heard from Jasmine, Eleanor said when she answered. Skyroot is getting a transformational leader. They certainly are, Marcus agreed. How do you feel about it? Honestly, I'm proud of her, Eleanor replied. And I'm not worried about Transglobal. We've built something that's bigger than any individual now. The news of Jasmine's departure created momentary concern among Transglobal's board members, but Marcus and Eleanor had anticipated this eventuality. They had been systematically developing leadership at all levels of the organization, ensuring that the transformation wasn't dependent on any single individual. At the emergency board meeting called to address Jasmine's resignation, Eleanor presented their succession plan. Carlos Mendez will step into Jasmine's role, she announced, displaying his profile on the screen. As one of our first customer experience leadership program graduates, he embodies our values and has been mentored by Jasmine for the past year. Carlos had been the flight attendant who spoke at the shareholder meeting about seeing difficult passengers as opportunities rather than enemies. His journey from frontline staff to executive leadership exemplified the meritocratic culture they had built. Marcus added, "This isn't a setback, it's validation. When competitors recruit your talent, it means you're doing something right." The board ultimately agreed, and Transglobal issued a gracious press release congratulating Jasmine on her new role and affirming their commitment to the customer experience transformation. The principles we've established at Transglobal are designed to spread throughout the industry. The statement read, "We wish Ms. Williams success in her new role and look forward to raising the standard of dignity for all air travelers, regardless of which airline they choose." The press release generated positive coverage, with industry analysts noting that Transglobal's confident response demonstrated the depth of their cultural transformation. Rather than reacting with defensiveness or legal restrictions, they had embraced the opportunity for their approach to influence competitors. 3 months later, Marcus received an invitation to speak at the Global Airline Summit in Dubai, the industry's most prestigious gathering. The theme was Aviation's Future, Experience as the Ultimate Differentiator. In the opulent ballroom of the Burj Al Arab, airline executives from 6 continents gathered to hear Marcus's keynote. The summit represented the pinnacle of the aviation industry's annual Calendera gathering, where major announcements were made, partnerships formed, and the future direction of global air travel shaped. As Marcus took the stage, he noticed Jasmine sitting with a Skyroute delegation and Eleanor with the Transglobal team competitors, now united by a shared philosophy. The sight reinforced his belief that true transformation transcended organizational boundaries. 3 years ago, Marcus began, I was denied a vegetarian meal in economy class. Today, I'm speaking to you about the future of aviation. He paused as appreciative laughter rippled through the audience. That journey represents more than personal vindication. It represents the extraordinary power of turning grievance into growth. For the next 40 minutes, Marcus outlined the principles that had transformed Transglobal: dignity as a business strategy, accountability as a path to innovation, and diversity as a competitive advantage. He shared data showing how these principles had translated into tangible business outcomes, not just for Transglobal, but now for Skyroute as well, where Jasmine's leadership was already showing measurable results. The airlines that will thrive in the next decade, he concluded, are those that recognize every interaction as an opportunity to either strengthen or weaken their brand. There are no neutral encounters. The standing ovation lasted nearly 2 minutes. As Marcus left the stage, he was approached by Sheikh Abdullah Al Maktoum, the billionaire owner of Celestial Airways, the fastest-growing carrier in the Middle East. Mr. Reynolds, the Sheikh said, your vision aligns perfectly with what we are building at Celestial. Would you consider joining our board of directors? Before Marcus could respond, similar offers came from executives of airlines based in Singapore, Brazil, and Germany. The Transglobal model had created a new paradigm, and everyone wanted access to its architect. Marcus thanked them for their interest, but explained that his focus remained on scaling the impact through Horizon Technologies rather than through individual board positions. He promised to have his team follow up with each airline to explore potential partnerships.